There's only one moment in time that makes an avoidant nervous and gives them butterflies. And in order to understand when that moment occurs, you need to understand a concept I call the nervousness bell curve. All right, so now before you, big shocker, I know, is a bell curve. The real beauty of this is that this concept I'm about to teach you applies to avoidants who've rejected you and who are in relationships with you. It's basically universal. You'll see what I mean about that in a moment. Now, you'll notice that this bell curve is divided into 5 distinct sections. Now, each one of these sections represents a different emotional state the avoidant cycles through as their feelings shift. Think of it like climbing a hill. At the bottom, they're at peace and steady. As they move upward, there's tension and the curiosity builds. At the very top, that's when the butterflies are going to hit. Then on the way down, control is taking back over, and finally they return to flat ground and it's safe, but they're detached again. That's basically the nervousness bell curve in motion. 5 stages, 1 peak. Let's start with stage 1, the control zone. All right, just like I said, this is where the avoidants feel calm, detached, and completely in control of themselves. Now, throughout this video, I'm always going to be giving you guys 2 examples. I want to show you what the section zone looks like for an avoidant when they're in a relationship, and then also what it looks like after they break up or are in the process of rejecting you. So if you're in a relationship, the control zone is the day-to-day rhythm where nothing really shakes them. They keep you at a comfortable emotional distance, and they're not nervous at all. Meanwhile, if you've gone through a breakup, the control zone is that initial relief phase where they convince themselves that they've made the right choice. They're flat, they're steady, and they're certain. But think about it. Why would someone in a relationship want to keep their partner at an arm's length? And then after a breakup, feel relieved instead of devastated? Why does it look so completely opposite? Well, it has to do with how avoidants regulate their emotions. So in 2003, 3 psychologists, McCulsener, Shaver, and Pireg, published a paper where they found that avoidant people don't deal with feelings head on. They down-regulate them. That means instead of letting the emotion rise and flow, they hit the brakes. They suppress distress, they avoid closeness, and basically shut off their own attachment needs by minimizing or denying them. So when you see them at ease here in stage 1, don't be fooled. It's a shutdown. It's their nervous system saying, nope, too much. Let's flip that switch and act fine, just to have the illusion of control. But underneath, the curve is already starting to build, and that rising tension sets the stage for what comes next. Section 2, the curiosity spark. All right, so here the avoidant begins to sense something is shifting. The calm detachment of section 1 gives way to a subtle tension they can't quite name. So in a relationship, they notice that you're being less predictable, maybe you're not always available, or you pull your attention elsewhere. It's a break in the rhythm, and they feel it. After a breakup, well, this is when you don't chase like they expect. So instead of text or please, they're met with silence. And that silence gets their attention. Now, what's really happening here is that their expectations are getting disrupted. And when reality doesn't line up with the story they have in their head, the calm control of section 1 starts giving way to the unease of section 2. This is all about a concept we call cognitive dissonance. This is Leon Festinger in the 1950s who described the mental discomfort we feel when our expectations clash with reality. For the avoidant brain, comfort is expected through distance. If I stay detached, I stay safe. But when you break the rhythm by being less predictable in a relationship or by not chasing after a breakup, reality doesn't quite fit that script anymore. That mismatch creates unease. It's not full-on anxiety yet, more like the faint flutter of wings in the background, but it's enough to plant the seed of nerves to grow. Real quick though. This is Sonia. She posted this in my community way back in 2022. He proposed! He surprised me on our walk by the lake. We move into our new home together in July, and the marriage is set for the fall of 2023. Oh, and according to her, her now husband was a fearful avoidant. She even linked to a YouTube interview where she broke down exactly how she got him to propose. Now, the big question on your mind is probably, well, what did Sonia do to get this kind of success? Well, here's the thing. Sonia didn't beg, chase, or wait around for her avoidant to change. She followed a proven framework, one that's helped hundreds of people get their avoidant partners to open up, commit, and even propose. And this framework, it's inside the Seiter Super Offer. Right now, For YouTube viewers only, I'm giving you everything you need to get results like Sonia's. My complete course library, a private community, weekly live streams. Now, normally I sell all of these things separately, but today you're going to get everything at 50% off. A one-time payment of $97. No monthly fees, no hidden costs, just everything you need to make your avoidant regret losing you and reignite their obsession. So, if you're interested, click the link in the description below and start your transformation today. All right, so where were we? Yes, we were just about to hit the butterfly zone. So once that seed is planted, it grows. The tension is going to build, the unease is going to sharpen until it finally hits its peak at section 3, the stomach flip. The stomach flip, or the butterfly peak, is the high point of the entire curve. The butterflies live here. Nervousness and attraction collide in this crazy instant. Now, what this looks like in a relationship is that they realize they actually want you. This stirs vulnerability, and excitement is paired with the terror of losing control. It's that stomach flip moment where feelings feel dangerous. But after a breakup, it looks like they see signs you might slip away forever. You've gone quiet, you're independent, maybe you're moving on to someone else, and suddenly they feel this nervous urgency. Now, at this stage, the avoidant nervous system is firing in what psychologists call activation. This idea, of course, comes from John Bowlby, the founder of attachment theory, who explained that our attachment system is like an alarm that turns on when closeness or separation feels threatening. So for the avoidant brain, that alarm is usually kept quiet through distance and control. But here, two powerful forces are colliding at the same time. Their fear of intimacy and their fear of losing you. That clash is exactly what creates the stomach flip moment, the butterflies. It feels exciting, but it's also feeling incredibly dangerous because it threatens the very control they've been trying to hold on to. And that's why it's so rare, so intense, and so fleeting. So why is it that they suddenly pull back when things seem to be moving forward? Why do they retreat into detachment just as the relationship deepens, or right after a breakup when they start to feel nervous again? Well, it's because their system can't tolerate staying at that emotional peak for a very long time. The butterflies feel like a loss of control, and the only way they know how to cope is to shut it back down. That's where section 4 comes in. Control being re-engaged. All right, so in a relationship, this kind of looks like if they start withdrawing or start shutting down or creating distance to soothe nerves after they have those butterfly feelings. Deactivation behaviors will typically return, and you might experience shorter text, less eye contact, and cooler energy. After a breakup, they could rationalize the butterflies away. I didn't really need them, I was right to end it, and they're burying their nerves under what their warped logic is. What's happening here is classic emotional suppression. So instead of allowing themselves to fully feel and process what's going on, avoidants actively push those emotions down. James Gross, one of the leading researchers on emotional regulation, found that suppression doesn't actually erase feelings. It just buries them beneath the surface. So on the outside, the avoidant is going to look calm, detached, logical, but inside, the nervous system is working overtime to hold everything in. And that's exactly what's going on after they get those butterflies. The intensity feels too dangerous, so they're shutting it down. They convince themselves that they don't really care, they minimize what just happened, and they retreat back into the distance. Eventually, though, the butterflies will fade. That nervous energy is gone, and the avoidance slips back into what feels most natural: distance. They're detached, calm, and seemingly unaffected. They've returned back to comfort at section 5. All right, so it's clear by looking at the graph with section 5, the curve is going to flatten. The nerves are gone. The avoidant feels like themselves again. They're calm, detached, distant. I've been through this a zillion times. So in a relationship, this is them returning back to their baseline behavior. They're comfortable, but kind of emotionally flat. The nervous spark has passed, at least for now. After a breakup, they'll settle back into avoidance. On the surface, they'll seem unaffected, but what you know is that there was a moment, a peak, where the butterflies did break through. I've always kind of looked at this detachment as the avoidance version of homeostasis. It feels like relief after the storm, but we all know it's an emotional shutdown. So they're regaining control and they shield themselves by retreating into the distance. Then the cycle resets and they stay in the safe but disconnected state until something stirs the whole system again. And then the butterfly thing happens again and again and again. So how do you know, though, that you've actually hit the peak, that you've had the avoidant see the butterflies? Let's break this down. So if you really want to know why avoidants get butterflies, it comes from the 3 circles that you see here that overlap. So circle 1 is unavailability, but not disinterest. You're not constantly available, but you're not rejecting them either. It's that subtle absence that throws off their rhythm. So again, in a relationship, you've got your own plans, you've got your own passion, you've got your own boundaries that take you away from them. In the case of being in a breakup, this is when you stop chasing, you stop texting, you stop begging for contact, you create space they weren't expecting. This taps into what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, which comes from classical conditioning research. The same principle that makes slot machines addictive. When rewards are inconsistent and unpredictable, the brain actually gets more hooked, not less hooked. So for avoidance, your unavailability works the same way. They can't predict your attention, and that unpredictability keeps them alert, it keeps them tuned in, and unconsciously craving the reward of connection. It's the uncertainty that creates intensity. Now, that space only works if you can actually hold your own. And that's where the second circle comes in. Circle 2 is emotional self-containment. All right, so emotional self-containment is all about you holding your own emotions without dumping them onto the avoidant. You're not flooding, you're not chasing, you're not demanding. In a relationship, this means you can calmly express yourself and then you just can let things breathe, which is a really underrated fact because I notice a lot of people in relationships can't do that. When something's bugging them, they're a lot more likely to kind of nag a little bit to try to fix the problem. For those of you who are going through a breakup, this is where you show resilience. You're not collapsing even if they thought you might. What's happening here and why this works is that it's modeling secure attachment behavior. So research by psychologists have shown that secure individuals can express emotions without clinging or avoiding. And for avoidance, this is incredibly disarming. So on the one hand, they fear it because true security threatens their built-in defense system, but on the other, they kind of crave it because it represents that kind of stable connection that they secretly want but struggle to create themselves. So when you stay grounded, it scrambles their usual script. So instead of seeing you as needy or overly emotional, they start questioning their assumptions. Wait, maybe I misjudged them. That pause is where the shift happens. And when you stack that with the third circle, things really start to click. So the third circle is value projection, or basically living well. This is where you project value by fully living your life. Your friends, you have purpose, you have hobbies, you have growth. In a relationship, they're seeing you not being defined by them. You're bringing energy into the connection. You don't drain it. After a breakup, for those of you going through a breakup, this is when they see glimpses of you thriving without them, and that unsettles their sense of control. That taps into the scarcity principle, which argues that the human brain is wired to assign more value to things that feel rare or at risk of being lost. So when someone valuable seems like they might slip away, it sparks urgency in their nervous system. For avoidants, who usually rely on distance to stay in control, this is especially powerful. Seeing you thrive without them threatens that control. It flips the script. Suddenly, you are the scarce resource, and their mind reacts with heightened attention, desire, and yes, those butterflies. So you put all 3 of these circles together, and that's the sweet spot. That overlap is where the butterflies live. When unavailability, emotional self-containment, and true value all line up, that's when you can expect the stomach flip moment for an avoidant, the peak of the butterfly zone. In any other situation, they stay composed and in control. But I want you to notice something about the 3 qualities I just listed. Do you see what they all have in common? These 3 qualities communicate strength without chasing. Avoidants feel butterflies when you maintain your own space confidently, if you regulate your own emotions without relying on them, and if you continue to thrive independently, showing your life has depth beyond the relationship. They're all about you standing firm in your own value. That's the paradox that most people miss. The more you hold your own, the more nervous they get. It's not your attention that shakes them, it's your absence. Because in that silence, in that strength, they finally feel the one thing they can't control, losing you. The real question is, how long can they sit with that before the cycle resets?